make your mic? I want to take a picture. Yes. See if I can. Yeah, do or a side kind of like. Am I better? Like sometimes. Test, test. Test, test. I think I'm on. Yeah. I don't hear Michael though. I have it. Okay. She's the one that's picking me up and picking me through. Alright. Nice to meet you. No. I was going to say thank you for dragging me around and making me sure.
Testing, testing. Testing. Can you put mine up higher?
Is it higher? Oh yeah, that's it. All those pieces.
Testing, testing.
I think they'll turn it up. I kind of.
Right? What a bathroom.
Let's turn it up. Oh, just a box. Okay, talk to you soon. Oh no, my brother, my other brother. So I told him, come on, sit down. Hey, nice to meet you. How you doing? Good stuff. Yeah,
Just talking now. But it's not. Maybe it's not.
I think we can still listen. Hopefully it's going to be loud enough. Yes. Do we have it as a backup? Okay, that might be good. Please, that happens.
Well, yes. Okay.
Click is working, right?
I'll test it. And then I'll just.
Yeah.
Good morning. at Texas State University. Welcome. This is an amazing crowd from San Marcos CISD. Let's hear it for the Rattlers. Me llamo Nancy Valdez-Gaynor. I'm the director of the Tomas Rivera Mexican American Children's Book Award. And we are so excited to welcome our author and picture book makers, Michael Genhart and Sean Pata. Es un gran honor estar aquí con ustedes celebrando los libros premiados de 2024. Before we get started, I need to open up with a few words. I need to express a little bit about the Tomas Rivera Award and some special guests we have here today with us. So the Tomas Rivera Book Award has been recognizing exceptional Chicanx children's and young adult literature since 1995. And this book award was named for a great man, Dr. Tomas Rivera. He was an important author, poet, educator, and community leader. And we hope that the work of this book award honors his legacy and aligns with his commitment to elevating the Mexican American community through story, education, and community building. We are going to introduce the authors, but first I want to recognize Dr. Ileana Rivera Liberatore, Mark Liberatore, Dr. Antonio and Mrs. Gloria Rivera, and we also have other members of the Rivera family joining us today. Would you mind waving? Thank you for being here. Mrs. Concepcion Rivera could not be here with us today, but we want to acknowledge her and all the support she's given us over the years, and we send our best wishes. I also need to recognize the National Committee members, Pat Enciso, San Juana Rodriguez, Sergio Martinez, and Denise Davila. I want to also thank our regional committee members who are in the audience today. Thank you. I need to give a special thank you to Dean Michael O'Malley, Ms. Doña Villarreal, the College of Education, our chair, Dr. Glenna Billingsley, Ms. Diane Osborne, Andres Rodriguez Huerta, the Department of Curriculum and Instruction, President Kelly Dampus, and Ms. Holly Hirsch from the President's Office. We have a couple more thank yous. We're almost done. I need to thank the many Texas State student volunteers and faculty who have been helping to prepare this event. And I want to thank San Marcos CISD, Dr. Michael Cardona, and Dr. Monica Valadez, and all the teachers who worked hard to prepare the students today. Thank you. Last but not least, I want to give a special thank you to Dial Books, Holiday House, Nancy Paulson Books, Neil Porter Books, Penguin Random House, and thank you to Evans Auditorium. Now, I'm going to invite Dr. Michael O'Malley, Dean of the College of Education, to make the Dean's remarks.
Good morning, everyone. Muy buenos dias y bienvenidos. So Nancy said my name's Michael, and I'm Dean of our college, which is kind of like a principal. And I just want to say we're so excited to have all of you here in our school at Texas State. San Marcos School District, we love San Marcos. That's our home school district. We live inside the district just like you do. So we're excited you're here. I heard a little secret when I came in, but I kind of want to share it with you. Can I share the secret? All right. Secret someone told me, I can't say who, is that second grade is the best grade in the whole San Marcos School District. That's what I heard. So we're so happy you're here. And what a great day, right? To have the author of a book and the illustrator here, and we get to talk with them and learn with them. And also, we just want to thank you for your books that open to us the Mexican-American experience and maybe help you see some of your story in the book or learn about someone else's story and their family. So we're just so happy you're all here and thrilled to hear from your authors. Welcome to Texas State.
Thank you.
So please join me in welcoming the second grade dual language students from Mendez Elementary right here in San Marcos TXST.
En el concurso de deletreo, un desafío. Cada palabra es un lazo, un eco antiguo. Los niños se levantan llenos de orgullo. Deletrean su historia, su voz, su refugio. Historias que viajan de abuelo a nieto. Un idioma que abraza un amor completo. Cada palabra un eco del ayer. En cada acento un mundo por ver. Las fiestas vibrantes, la mesa compartida. El sabor del hogar, la esencia querida. En la lengua del pueblo un canto de unión. El español es vida en nuestro corazón.
I go first.
Yo de primero.
Okay, we're going to have our students introduce the authors.
Mi nombre es Jesús Guevara, yo asisto a la primaria Méndez en San Marcos, Texas. Es un placer introducir a Michael Kenhart. Él ha sido el ganador del premio Tomás Rivera este año. El doctor Kenhart es un psicólogo y un autor. Él vive con su familia en California. Su libro, El español es la lengua de mi familia, está basado en historias que le contó su mamá cuando era niño. Su libro, El español es la lengua de mi familia, publicado en 2023. Ha ganado muchos premios y honores. Ahora celebramos el honor literario que se le brinda a Michael Kenhart por medio del premio 2024 de Tomás Rivera de libros infantiles México-americanos. Vamos a darle la bienvenida a Michael Kenhart.
Good morning. My name is Lucas Mateo Palacios. I attend Mendes Elementary in San Marcos, Texas. Today we will welcome Michael Genhart. He is the winner of the 2024 TOMAS RIVERA Children's Book Award. Dr. Genhart is a licensed clinical psychologist and an author. He lives with his family in Marin County, California. His book, Spanish is the Language of My Family, is based on stories he heard from his mother as a child. Michael Genhart published Spanish is the Language of My Family in 2023. His book has received numerous awards and honors. Today we honor his literacy work by awarding him the 2024 Tomás Rivera Children's Book Award. Please give a warm welcome to Michael Genhart.
Mi nombre es Micaela Saldaña. Yo asisto a la primaria Méndez en San Marcos, Texas. Es un placer introducir a John Parra, el ganador del premio Tomás Rivera. Este año, el señor Parra es un ilustrador y autor premiado y muy famoso por sus libros infantiles que representan temas latinos. Su arte ha sido presentado en muchas exhibiciones en museos y galerías de los Estados Unidos y en otros países. Su libro, El español es la lengua de mi familia, publicado en 2023, ha ganado muchos premios y honores. Ahora celebramos el honor literario y artístico que se le brinda a John Parra por medio del premio 2024 de Tomás Rivera de los libros infantiles México y americanos. Vamos a darle la bienvenida a John Parra.
Good morning. My name is Grant Nail. I attend Mendez Elementary in San Marcos, Texas. Today we welcome John Parra. He is the winner of the 2024 Tomás Rivera Children's Book Award. Mr. Parra is an award-winning illustrator and author who is very famous for his Latino-themed picture books. His artwork has been presented in exhibitions in museums and galleries in the United States and in other countries. The book Spanish is the Language of My Family was published in 2023. The book has received numerous awards and honors. Today we honor his literary and artistic work by awarding him the 2024 Tomás Rivera Children's Book Award. Please give a warm welcome to John Parra.
give it up for John Para and Michael Genhardt.
Buenos dias. Can you hear me okay? The mic was not working earlier, but it sounds like it's okay now. Okay, good. I have to say, I don't think we've ever received a warmer reception and introduction. Give a hand to those kids.
It's an honor to be here today. I am so grateful to be presenting with the author of this book, Michael Genhardt, and we're just happy to share our stories with you and our creativity. So thank you for that.
We want to begin by thanking the TOMAS RIVERA Book Award Committee for this honor. We are honored to be here and to share our book with you. And make sure this works. We want to also honor, of course, Dr. Rivera and what he stood for and how he paved the way for so many authors like us. He truly was a leader who centered education and the Mexican-American experience. And we are so proud to be part of his legacy. So, and we are eager to meet the Rivera family as well. Okay, I thought it would be fun to just start by describing a bit about why I started writing books. You might recognize that little boy missing a couple of teeth. That was me in second grade, actually, wearing my favorite shirt. I had one of those sort of sewn-in ties. Anyway, I just fell in love with books. I'm one of 7 children. My parents could not afford books, so we didn't have books at home. But I had really incredible teachers and librarians who introduced me to the world of books. And here are a couple of my favorite books. You might recognize them, Charlotte's Web and The Story of Ferdinand. I also grew up in a multicultural family, 2 cultures coming together. Mi mamá es mexicana. She's the taller of the little the 2 girls standing right next to my tia in front of mis abuelos in Southern California. And my father is Swiss American. He's the little boy holding the accordion. You guys know what an accordion is? Yeah. He's standing next to my uncle in front of my other grandparents, who were both born in Switzerland. So one of the things that I noticed when I started thinking about writing books was that there weren't many books that looked like my family. And I didn't like that. So guess what I did? I wrote a couple. Guess what Accordionly was inspired by, right? That's the story of a little boy who brings the 2 cultures of his family together through the accordion. And because the 2 grandfathers, Opa and Abuelo, played the accordion, they didn't speak each other's languages. That was true of my family. But they spoke accordion. They spoke music, right? So music was a kind of bridge that brought the 2 cultures of the family together. And then one of my favorite days of the year is Noche Buena, when I was a little boy, because my family would gather to make tamales, right? And I was the only boy in the kitchen, surrounded by my abuela, my tia, my mom, my cousins, my sisters, making tamales. So this is the story of a grandmother, an abuela who teaches her nieta Rosie how to make tamales. But every step along the way, she also shares a little wisdom about life as well, which is why it's called Mayor Likely Deliciosa. I wanted just to make a statement about why it's important for kids to see themselves in books. Because for the longest time, there are a lot of books that didn't feature the stories of Black and brown families, right? And so what happens is that those kids don't feel like they're very valued, right? And so I'm determined to, along with others, correct that by writing more and more books about, in this case, the Latino experience. So kids like all of you can see yourselves in books. Because one of the things, and John maybe can comment on this too, that we love the most is being here, sharing our book with you guys. We've traveled from Fresno, the Central Valley, through Texas, all the way to Washington, D.C., the National Museum of American Latino, to share our book. And we get to talk to audiences like you and share this story. And it's not uncommon for kids to come up to us and say, hey, I'm like the little boy in that story. You wrote about my family, which I have to say makes me cry every single time. And so we're delighted again to be here to share with all of you in the way we have with other audiences our book.
That's me as a little boy. I'm also missing some teeth right there. That's a picture of first day. I love the shirt that it says John Parra. My mom got the new shirt. That's great that I get to remember that for forever. Now, as I was young, art was a very big, important part of my life growing up. And one of the big inspirations that really sort of fueled that artistic drive in me was that I loved books, especially the pictures in those books. I would go to the library, my mom would take us to the library, and we would look and I would see and I would read those stories, but I was fascinated with the illustrations and the artwork in those books. And growing up, that was sort of my way I also communicated, because I was a very introverted, shy kid, but through my art, through my way of communicating through pictures, I got confident. I got confidence through that. And so when I was a kid, I would always be drawing. This is actually a picture of me on my very first day of preschool. That's me on the right-hand side, drawing a self-portrait. And I got interviewed for the newspaper, and I'll just go ahead and read it. It says, 5-year-old Abraham Barraza and John Pata put their finishing touches on some self-portraits. When asked if his mother had given him any last-minute instructions prior to leaving for his first day of school, John Parra said, "No, she didn't. I know it all already." So there you go. First day of preschool. And again, because I love to draw, I also would draw and I was inspired by a book this called The Little House by Virginia Lee Burton, and I would draw my own little house. And that was about kindergarten. This is about a kindergarten level drawing. Is that pretty good for kindergarten? Not too bad, right? Thank you for that.
You want to talk about your research?
Is this the research? Oh yeah, this is the research. I'm sorry. So anytime I'm starting the book, I have to do like homework and research for the book. And so part of the thing is I'm catching images and references. So I'll read the book, I'll think about what the story is, and I try to match and connect it with different images and pictures, either online or through stories, but also through music, also through other stories related to the book I'm working on, other pictures, videos, anything that I can think of that help me. It's sort of like my homework when I'm working on the book. And then I kind of amass a big stockpile of pictures and kind of get the vibe and the influences that will kind of shape what the book is going to look like. So those are some of the pictures. And I always start with the characters, and I always start with the drawing of the faces and the kids and how they're interacting with each other. So it's really important to do the characters first and how they interact, what their expressions are, how they look. So this is part of that. And then pretty soon I'm starting to develop a story that goes along with the book. And these are called like a storyboard pages, and what you want to do. And then you'll notice that it has a flow to it, and you kind of go kind of a give and take of zooming in and going back, and how the background in this is different from the background in that, and the moment that you want to capture, because a story is about moments and pages and how it develops and how it continues to tell the story. Because visually, I don't want to just repeat what's in the words. I want to convey and complement those words. I want to kind of share the feeling that the messages in that, and pick a moment in the words that is being said in the book to kind of convey it in my own way and sort of enhance that story. And so that's what I do. And then pretty soon I'm working on the drawings, and the drawings, sometimes you don't even get it right the first time. Sometimes you're working on it and you're practicing it, and you're kind of, it's like you're kneading the dough and things like that, and you're working on it so much. So this is the same what happened with the picture. I did this drawing up at the top left, and about this specific page, and I said, yeah, it's pretty good, it's okay, but it could be better. And then it moved up into the top right, and I said, yeah, it's kind of getting there, but something about it, I don't feel the flow, I don't feel the energy. And then eventually it came down to the bottom page, the final page that ended up in the book. And I go, yeah, that's the illustration I like. That's just the perfect way I wanted to kind of shape it. And this is actually one of my favorite spreads on the page. So sometimes you're working on a project, either at school, or at home or things like that, and you kind of have to, be patient with yourself, but work through it, see, ask yourself, is this the best that I can do? Is this the best that I can make it? And before you know, once you revise, because it's not about getting it perfect, it's about revising and getting it working the way you want it to, and that takes a process. So I love that process. And so again, I'll take that sketch. This is one of the other sketches from the book, and how do I make it into the illustration? So I'll take the drawing, and then I'll start painting the characters, and then pretty soon it becomes the background. I start painting in the background, and that's how I finish one of the pages. So how long do you think it takes me to do one picture book? Just the illustration, just the artwork. Anybody? 1 hour? What else? Anybody else have a show of hands? 2 hours? A little bit longer than that. 3 hours? Okay. I'll tell you what it is. Okay. 6 to 8 months. 6 to 8 months. So that means if I'm starting the second grade, by the time I finish almost like the school year, that's like one school year for one book, just to do the artwork. So it takes a lot of time. So I break everything down one step at a time. I don't do everything all at once. It becomes overwhelming. So if you have a project at school, and you think it's overwhelming, break it into little pieces. That's what I do when I'm working on a project. I break it. I do one step at a time. And then before you know it, a few weeks go by and I go, you know what? I've made some progress. And that's how you accomplish things. That's how you accomplish things in life. That's how I accomplish all my books, and for which I'm really grateful for.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
You guys may not know this, but when you're an author and you send your story to companies that might publish your book, if they say yes, that's always a happy day. You don't always get to pick the illustrator. In fact, often you don't get to. They sometimes ask you, do you have someone in mind? And I thought, John Pada. And John Pada is very much in demand. And so I sat there every single day with my fingers crossed that he would say yes. And guess what happened? He said yes. I'm so grateful, John, that you said yes, and then we got to produce this book together. So now let's talk about the story while we're here. Spanish is the language of my family. First, I want to ask all of you, how many of you speak a language other than English at home? Other than English, like Spanish or German or whatever? Okay, a fair amount of you, all right? Even if you speak English at home, the point I want to make here is, how do you think you would feel if you were told that whatever language you speak at home, you cannot speak at school? That it was against the law. Actually against the law. Well, that's the background for this story. When I was a little boy, that's my mom, that's John's Aunt Irma. When I was a little boy, my mom, starting school, my mom would tell me stories of what it was like for her when she started school. This is in Southern California. Her first language was Spanish. In fact, she did not speak English when she started school. And the law across the country was English only. From 1918 to 1968, that's when the laws changed. And kids were told, again, you could not speak a language other than English at school. In fact, if you did, you'd get punished. Right? This is a little hard to believe, but it's true. Kids would get sent home or spanked for every word that they spoke in Spanish or whatever language. And were shamed. They were told that their language and really their culture and family were kind of dirty and ugly. And so my mom would tell me that story, and of course it's a very sad story, but I held it for many years. And when I started to think about writing books, I thought I wanted to tell this story. I just didn't know how to tell it exactly, because it's not an easy story to tell. since this is a very personal story, we thought we would share some family photos. These are photos of my mom, and my grandmother, and my aunt. Again, growing up in Southern California, just to kind of give you a flavor of our family, my history, and the same with John, his family, also in Southern California.
Yeah, I was just going to say my parents, my father was a first generation Mexican American, born in Texas actually, just outside El Paso, little town in Canutillo, before moving to California. And like Michael's family background also, they were, only spoke Spanish at home, and when they went to school, I would hear stories from my Aunt Irma, who you saw the picture earlier, about her being punished for speaking Spanish and how she felt about that. And so that was one of the really important reasons why I decided to work on this book, because I thought this is a really important story that a lot of people either went through or are maybe not old enough to remember or old enough to know about yet. And I wanted to make sure this story was shared. And so this was definitely one of the reasons why I decided to work on this amazing, amazing story with Michael.
Because one of the things that happened as a result of this is that those kids grew up, and many of them stopped speaking Spanish to their children, right? Because they didn't want their children and generations after that to be shamed in the way they were. And so to me, one of the tragedies of that is there are a lot of Latinos and Latinas today looking very Latino who don't speak any Spanish, right? And so I wanted to do something about that. So this book, hopefully, in the end, is a celebration of the language, family, and culture, because I wanted to take some of that ugliness that was taken from those children and turn it into something beautiful, right? So I hope we were able to accomplish that in this book. So I just wanted to just show you this map of the U.S. You guys recognize this. Again, it was a law across the country. Different states enforced it differently. The darker the green is where those are the states that enforce the law much more strictly. Why? From California to Texas especially, because there are a lot of Latino families, right, in those states speaking Spanish, right? So that's where it is much more severe. And this is just to illustrate, kids not being able to speak Spanish at school. Okay, when I was doing research for this book, one of the things I ran across was a video of a documentary that some college students made in the early 2000s about this topic. And we're going to show you a clip right now of some of those kids, now grown-ups, telling the story of what it was like for them when they were younger. Okay? One of the people who was interviewed is in the audience today, Carmen Tafoya. And you'll hear her later. And so I just love this sort of full circle, being able to share this that helped me create this story now with you, Carmen. So let's listen to their stories. Now,
In this society, we have defined being American for certain groups of people as speaking English well.
I was a good student at Lanier. I was a member of the student council. All the student council would get together, and one of the projects that we had at Lanier, at this school, was that every Monday the school would issue you a ribbon, and in that ribbon it said, "I speak English, I'm a good American." And our students that were on the student council would walk the halls, and if I heard you speaking Spanish, I would take your name, take your ribbon away from you, and turn that ribbon over to your homeroom teacher. That homeroom teacher would then turn over the fact that you were caught speaking Spanish to your English teacher, and you would get a demerit. That was the system.
I have a paddle with holes drilled through it. and it says Board of Education, and it's got kids' signatures and little strokes next to the signatures. This paddle belonged to my aunt, who was a first grade teacher for 40 years. She was given the paddle by another teacher who was retiring, who said, if you can't make them do what you need them to do, just use this. This is the Board of Education. Gave it to her. She taught first grade. The rule at the school was, in my school also, was one stroke. A stroke was a hit with a paddle. One stroke for every word in Spanish. Since most of the teachers didn't speak Spanish, they didn't know how many words the kid had said. So if the kid says, "Córrele, Guadalupe," no one's going to believe that kid that that's 2 words. Córrele, which means run. Guadalupe, which is the person they were talking to. No one was going to believe that. They were saying, sounds like 10 words to me. So it was 10 strokes with a paddle that had holes drilled into it that left marks.
I spent a lot of time in the clothes closet. That and for speaking Spanish. There were only 2 other children there who spoke Spanish in the particular classroom that I went to. I went to a Catholic elementary school. And so I wouldn't speak Spanish to them, and I was trying to learn some English with the other kids. So it was really interesting, spending time in the clothes closet. I would just sit there in the semi-darkness and just use my imagination and while the time away. I remember one time the kids went to lunch and the teacher forgot that I was in the clothes closet. And so all the kids came by and took their lunches, and I was still sitting there. And they went on out to lunch. They evidently didn't tell her that I was sitting there. So I went and got my lunch and proceeded to eat it there in the clothes closet.
There's something that is taken away from you, and that is that basically you begin to dislike who you are in a large sense. You go into a denial. You know that if they spank you because you're speaking Spanish, you've got to reason, and you can't. That there's something wrong with your speaking Spanish.
If I were to move to Russia and could barely utter a few words in Russian, that wouldn't reduce my self-esteem particularly, because I already have my status. But if you're a child and you come into society and the society tells you you can't speak English and therefore you're not worth very much, that affects self-esteem.
The whole idea with bilingual education was twofold. One was linguistic and the other one was psychological. And the psychological to me has always been more important than the language. You've got to feel good about yourself if you want to be a good learner. If you want to be successful, you have to feel good about yourself. And we taught, and we still teach children to get them not to be themselves. You know, we used to be ashamed to bring our tortillas and frijoles from home, and some of it came from large families. Mom didn't have money to give us to buy food at the cafeteria, so she would make lunch, and lunch consisted not of white bread that you would buy at the store. It was tortillas that she had made and rolled, and beans that she would fix, and then she would wrap them up, and she'd give you 2 or 3, and we would eat them hiding away from the rest of the students. Like that's I grew up with that shame, and there's no reason to be ashamed of who you are, and who your parents are, and what language you bring from home, and what culture you bring.
And by junior high, you have other things going on in terms of identity and awareness and who we are. And I'll never forget Maria Guadalupe Soriano, who sat in front of me all the time because we were seated alphabetically, you know, and I was Tafoya and she was Soriano. And Mrs. Price, I don't know if I'm supposed to say the name, but Mrs. Price in the junior high that I was in, announced as at the beginning of science class, not at the beginning of the year, we're talking about on a regular basis going through December, January, February, March. I better not catch any of you speaking Spanish in here. Were you saying something in Spanish? Spanish is a dirty language. You are not supposed to use it in school. And Maria Guadalupe turning around and mumbling to me, my mother speaks Spanish. My grandmother speaks Spanish. My mother and my grandmother are not dirty. And Spanish is not a dirty language.
Okay. I'm so grateful, Carmen, to you and everyone that contributed to this to have proper documentation, right, to tell this story that allowed us now to tell our story to kids. So I know it's not an easy thing to hear, especially if you're a child, but I think it's important to know our history. Now, the other piece of research that I found, or thing that I found when I was doing research, is that there's a National Spanish Spelling Bee. How many of you guys know that there's a National Spanish Spelling Bee? You guys know what a spelling bee is? What's a spelling bee? What's this? Okay. Okay, so, right, it's where you guys know, you spell words, right? And hopefully you spell it correctly, and the winner is one who spells, all the words correctly. Anyway, there's a National Spanish Spelling Bee. A guy by the name of David Briceño started it about 15 years ago in New Mexico, and he started it because his parents went through the same shaming and ridicule, and he wanted to do something about it. He wanted to turn that into something more of a celebration. So now we have the spelling bee, and we have a clip from a few years ago, just to kind of get you guys in the mood here before we read our book. This is the last round of the spelling bee. That means there are 2 contestants left, right? And let's see what happens. Let's play it. Do I do it or do you do it? He's asked to spell the word ermitaño. If she spells it incorrectly, the little boy gets his turn. Can we turn up the volume a bit?
¿Puede dar una definición, por favor?
He was asking for the word to be repeated and for the definition.
Monje que vive solo.
Someone who is alone.
Ermitaño. H-E-R-M-I-T-A-N-O.
But she did not spell it correctly, so now he gets his turn.
Deletrea la palabra ermitaño.
If he spells it correctly, he has to spell one more word correctly.
Ermitaño. E-R-M-I-T-A-N-O. Ermitaño.
He spelled it correctly. Now there's one more word.
Deletrea la palabra Tahití.
Spell the word Tahiti.
Tahití. T mayúscula A-H-I-T y con acento. Tahití.
So that gives you a sense of what the spelling bee is like. So now we'll go back to the presentation. John did the poster for the spelling bee a couple years ago. Yeah, which is beautiful. Okay, so vamos a leer el libro en inglés y español.
Let us then
Every page, almost every page, John put a little bee or a spelling bee. See if you can find it on every page. And if any of you guys know the Spanish alphabet, because there's spelling in the book, and you want to join us in spelling, feel free. All right. Ready, John?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
You want to sit or?
You gonna sit?
Yeah. Every year at my school, there is a spelling bee in Spanish. I'm the first in my class to sign up because Spanish is the language of my family.
Todos los años mi escuela organiza un concurso de deletreo en español. Soy el primero de mi grupo en inscribirse porque el español es la lengua de mi familia.
I already know how to spell many words.
Ya sé deletrear muchas palabras. Familia is family. F-A-M-I-L-I-A. Juntos is together. J-U-N-T-O-S. Corazón is heart. C-O-R-A-Z-O con tilde. N.
I don't know how to spell some words yet. My abuela helps me prepare. Hay una lista de palabras. We carefully review each word.
Todavía no sé cómo deletrear algunas palabras, así que mi abuela me ayuda a prepararme. Hay una lista de palabras y estudiamos cada una cuidadosamente. Hermoso is beautiful. H-E-R-M-O-S-O. Orgulloso is proud. O-R-G-U-L-L-O-S-O. Fuerte is strong. F-U-E-R-T-E.
When she studies with me, my abuela shares stories of when she was a little girl. She tells me things were very different back then. The rule at school was English only. Speaking Spanish was not allowed. Manolito, el español no estaba permitido, she explains. It's hard to imagine not being allowed to speak Spanish.
Cuando estudia conmigo, mi abuela me cuenta historias de cuando era niña. Me dice que las cosas eran muy diferentes entonces. En su escuela, la regla era solo hablar inglés. Manolito, no se permitía hablar en español, me explica. Ay, ahora es difícil imaginar que estuviera prohibido hablar español.
Abuela tells me on the playground we would sneak in Spanish. You did? I asked. But we'd get in big trouble, Abuela continues, if we ever got caught. ¿Qué pasaba, Abu? We were punished, she tells me, and we were told that Spanish and anyone who spoke it was wrong or worse.
La abuela me dice, en el patio de recreo hablábamos en secreto en español. ¿De verdad? Le pregunto. Sí, pero nos metíamos en muchos problemas si nos descubrían, continúa mi abuela. ¿Qué pasaba, abu? Nos castigaban, me cuenta. Y nos decían que el español y cualquiera que lo hablara estaba mal o algo peor.
I was sent home for speaking Spanish to a classmate, Abuela remembers. I feel so sad hearing this and other stories. Your auntie, Tia Pancha, got spanked with a paddle for every Spanish word she spoke. And mi amiguita Kika had her mouth washed out with soap for speaking Spanish.
Me mandaron a casa por hablar en español con una compañera, recuerda la abuela. Me siento muy triste cuando escucho sus historias. A tu tía Pancha le pagaron en el trasero con una palmeta por cada palabra en español que había dicho. Y a mi amiguita Kika le lavaron la boca con jabón por hablar en español. Fea is ugly. F-A-A. Mala is bad. M-A-L-A. Sucia is dirty. S-A-U-C-I-A.
Abuela and my family are not ugly, bad, or dirty.
La abuela y mis familiares no son feos, malos ni sucios. Nuestra lengua no es mala.
I work even harder, practico y practico con mi abuela. I must remember that some words have special letters and accents.
Me esfuerzo todavía más. Practico y practico con mi abuela. Debo recordar que algunas palabras tienen letras y acentos especiales. Daño is harm. D-A-N-O. ¿Por qué? Is why. P-O-R-Q-U-E con tilde. Bilingüe is bilingual. B-I-L-I-N-E. U con diéresis. E.
I am climbing a high mountain. I know I can reach the top, just like I know I can win this spelling bee. Tengo fuerza.
Subo una montaña muy alta, pero sé que puedo llegar a la cima, igual que sé que puedo ganar el concurso. Soy fuerte.
But studying all these words is hard. Sometimes I get frustrated and tired. Abuela makes me choros. Mama and Papa tell me jokes.
Pero estudiar tantas palabras es difícil. A veces me siento frustrado y cansado. Así que la abuela me prepara churros. Who likes churros? Y mamá y papá me cuentan chistes. Delicioso is delicious. D-E-L-I-C-I-O-S-O. Risa is laughter. R-I-S-A. Apoyo is support. A-P-O-Y-O. Okay, you guys, it's the day of the contest.
All right, on the day of the contest, my family gathers in the audience. Their cheers give me confidence. Me siento apoyado por ellos. One by one, we are called up to spell.
El día del concurso, toda mi familia está entre el público. Me animan y eso me da confianza. Siento su apoyo. Nos llaman de uno en uno a deletrear.
My first word is poderoso. I take a deep breath and begin.
Mi primera palabra es poderoso. Respiro profundamente y empiezo. Let's all take a big breath together. Ready? Poderoso. P-O-D-E-R-O-S-O. Poderoso. Abu is poderosísima.
I feel powerful, proud, and strong, just like Abu. I spell more and more words correctly. Then it's down to just the two of us.
Yo también me siento poderoso, orgulloso y fuerte, como Abu. Deletreo más y más palabras correctamente. Ya solo quedamos dos en el concurso.
The word is vergüenza.
La palabra es vergüenza. V-E-R-G-U con diéresis. E-N-Z-A.
My schoolmate makes an spelling error. I watch him walk slowly back to his chair. Now it's my turn to spell the same word, shame. I know about this from Abu. I misspell it too. We start again.
Mi compañero se equivoca en una letra y veo cómo camina lentamente de regreso a su silla. Ahora debo deletrear la misma palabra, vergüenza. Sé que significa gracias a algo. Yo también la deletreo mal. Volvemos a empezar.
When my classmate spells the next word, he leaves out a letter. I can feel my heart beating faster. I take another deep breath. This time I get it right.
Cuando mi compañero deletrea la siguiente palabra, se le olvida una letra. Puedo sentir que mi corazón late con más fuerza. Respiro profundamente de nuevo. Esta vez no me equivoqué.
There's only one more word to go. If I spell it right, I will win. Respeto.
Solo debo deletrear una palabra más. Si lo hago bien, ganaré el concurso. Respeto. Como el respeto que siento por Abu, por mi familia y por mi lengua. R-E-S-P-E-T-O. Respeto.
The judge says correcto.
El juez dice correcto.
My family cheers. My abuela is crying. And at that moment, I know we both won today.
Mi familia vitorea. Mi abuela está llorando. It's hard for me to get through this part. En ese momento me doy cuenta de que los dos ganamos hoy.
Abuela hugs me tight and says, Mi corazón, felicidades. Te quiero mucho, Abu, I say, full of pride.
Mi abuela me abraza fuerte y dice, mi corazón, felicidades. Te quiero mucho, Abu, contesto, lleno de orgullo. Triunfante is triumphant. P-R-I-U-N-F-A-N-T-E. Sanación is healing. S-A-N-A-C-I-O con tilde. N. Amor is love. A-M-O-R. And that sounds good. Thank you so much. So the back of the book, as you probably know, has some more information about the story that we shared with you and the alphabet. I wanted just to share since I began the story by telling you that I had learned of this through my mom when I was a little boy. I got to share this with my mom. That's my mom now at 88 years old. And authors and illustrators, when the book comes out, they get copies before bookstores and schools. And so the first call I made was to my mom when I got my I got the copies of the book in English and Spanish. And my mom said over the phone, read me the Spanish version. So I read the Spanish version to her, and I read, and she was very quiet. I continued reading, and I could hear her crying. And then I finished the book, and then we sat in silence together for a couple of minutes. I could hear her whimpering, and I said, Mom, he said, I'm just remembering that time. I share this with you because those minutes of silence were healing. They were healing. And for her, for me, this is this little Latina girl who was shamed like so many people before and after her, who now heard her story through her son in a book in Spanish, right, that I got to read with her. And so that was tremendous for me, I have to say, and for her, and I hope for many other families. Really, I hope this is a book of healing for many. And as I said before, a celebration, right? I really want to emphasize turning that shame into something proud, and hurt into healing, and disrespect into respect, and again, something very celebratory. I hope we are able to capture that. I also think it's important to tell untold stories, because I don't think this is a story that's in many history books, and it should be, right? And so more books like this, I think, need to be written, and untold stories told. So we're going to wrap things up. I thought it'd be fun to do a little spelling together as the group in Spanish. We'll just do like 4 or 5 words if you're game. We'll do it together. These are all words that came right from the book. You guys okay with that, to spell together? Okay. All right. What's the word for family in Spanish? Familia. All right, let's do it together. Ready? F, A, N, E, L, Good job. Familia. Okay. What's the word for strong in Spanish? Fuerte. Ready? F-A-U-A-L-T-E. Fuerte. Muy bien. What's the word for ugly in Spanish? Fea. Ready? F-A-A-R. Good job. I don't know why the number 1 keeps showing. Anyway. Heart. What's the word for heart? Corazón. Ready? C-O-R-A-Z-O-N. Okay, one more. The word for beautiful. In the book. Hermoso. Ready? H-A-L-L-M-O-S-O. Muy bien, give yourself a hand. Okay, so we want to leave you with this thought. I hope this story inspires all of you to maybe think about stories in your own family. Maybe start listening to your parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles a little differently, and hold on to those stories, because someday you may want to write your own and keep the tradition and history of your family going. And just a little tip for writers, beginning writers. I think a lot of us kind of get caught up in, well, this story doesn't sound very good, or I don't know how to spell. If you want to draw and be an illustrator too, you might say, I don't draw very well. And I would say to that, just write. Just draw. Right? And don't worry about making mistakes and stuff, because mistakes actually help us, right? Help us get better. And tell the stories that you want to tell. Maybe tell a story that only you can tell, right? Because it's that personal. And just write and just draw. I always think it's important to start your story from the heart, something that really matters to you, that makes you feel sad or happy. And if you can give your character that same heart, it's going to touch the reader, the person who's reading your story, in the same way. Like anything else, it requires practice. If you want to be a good soccer player, yeah, or a good musician, or a good reader. Okay, guys. So you just have to practice, right? Like anything else, you just have to practice. Okay, I don't know how much time we have. I know. Anyway, if we want to take a few questions, do we have time for that?
So, I'm so sorry. We are out of time, but what we will do, students, if you will write your questions down and give them to your teachers, and teachers, if you will give them to Dr. Valadez, we will email them directly to our picture book makers, and maybe they'll write you back. Okay, so if you have a question, keep it up here, hold on to it, and when you get to school, I want you to write it down for your teacher. So can we give a round of applause to our wonderful authors? So what I'd like to say is that I want to thank you for joining us today for today's presentation. I want you to continue to read books, and we want you to write your own stories, and one day you might be up here presenting, okay? So thank you again. Authors are going to be signing in the foyer for Texas State and community members. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and like to say a word to our live stream audience. Thanks for joining us. We will be back at 11:15 for our second presentation with Carmen Tafoya and Pedro Martin. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss school. So if you're an usher and you hear the school name, you're going to stand up, and then schools, teachers, and students, you're going to look for your ushers to head on out. We're going to go ahead and start in the balcony with Hernandez. Now, De Zavala, raise your hand. And let's go ahead and get De Zavala going out this way down the ramp on this side. Muy bien, bienvenidos at Texas State University. Welcome to you all. We have an amazing crowd in the audience, and when I say your school, I want you to cheer. We have in the audience today, we have students from San Marcos CISD. We have Hernandez. Rodriguez. We have Travis. We have De Zavala. We have Crockett. Bowie. And last but not least, we have Bettis from Austin ISD. Okay, I need your attention. Thank you. Look at all these amazing students right here ready to listen. Me llamo Nancy Valdez Gaynor. I'm the director of the Tomas Rivera Mexican American Children's Book Award. And we are all excited to see Pedro Martin and Carmen Tafoya today, aren't we? Es un gran honor estar aquí con ustedes celebrando los libros premiados de 2024. I'm really excited that you are here to join us. And before we get started, I need to acknowledge some special guests we have here and tell you a little bit about our award. So the Tomas Rivera Book Award has been recognizing exceptional Chicanx children's literature and young adult literature since 1995. This book award was named for a great man. Dr. Tomas Rivera was an important author, educator, and community leader. We hope that the work of this book award honors his legacy and aligns with his commitment to elevating the Mexican American community through story, education, and community building. Before I introduce our authors, I would like to recognize members of the Rivera family, Dr. Ileana Rivera Liberatore, Mark Liberatore, Dr. Antonio Rivera, Mrs. Gloria Rivera, and we have Dr. Antonia and Gloria Rivera's children as well. Can we give them a round of applause? So, Mrs. Concepcion Rivera, who is Tomas Rivera's widow, is not able to be with us in person, but we want to recognize her for all the years of support, and we want to send our best wishes to her. I need to recognize members of our national committee. We have Pat Enciso, San Juana Rodriguez, Sergio Martinez, and Denise Davila. As well as members of our regional committee who are here in the audience with us. Thank you. I'm almost done. We just have a lot of people to thank because it takes a lot of people to put on an event like this. And so I want to give a special thank you to Dean Michael O'Malley, Ms. Donya Real. So here's what we'll do. There's a lot of people, so I'm gonna name them all and then we'll clap, okay? So I wanna thank Ms. Dania Villarreal, College of Education, Chair Glenna Billingsley, Diane Osborne, Andres Rodriguez Huerta, the Department of Curriculum and Instruction, President Danfus and Holly Hirsch from the President's Office. And I need to give a special thank you to all the Texas State volunteers and faculty who have helped to make this day possible. Now we can clap. Okay, lastly, we want to thank Dial Books, Holiday House, Nancy Paulson Books, Neil Porter Books, Penguin Random House, and we want to thank Evans Auditorium. I need to give us, I also want to say that we are so grateful to San Marcos, to Dr. Cardona and Dr. Valadez for helping to organize this, and for all your teachers who've worked hard to read the books with you and prepare you to come today. Thank you. We'll want to say a special hello to all of the audience that are watching this live stream. We appreciate you being here with us. And now I'd like to invite Dr. O'Malley, the Dean of the College of Education.
Good morning, everybody. Bienvenidos to Texas State. Muy buenos dias. We're so happy you're here. So my job, Nancy said I'm a dean. My name's Michael. That's kind of like a principal. I get to work with our teachers and our students in making Texas State a really great place. And so hopefully, maybe someday, you'll also be coming to Texas State as a student. That would be great for us. But right now, we get to go out to your schools a lot in San Marcos and Austin and other school districts. And so whenever we have the chance to have you here at Texas State with us, just makes us really excited and really proud that we can host you here and show you who we are. So we're really glad you're here today. This is an exciting day, isn't it? We have the authors here and this opportunity to not only hear their stories, but really get to see them now and talk with them and get to know the authors. So we're really excited that they're here also with us today. This award is so important. Like Nancy said, honoring a great man, TOMAS RIVERA, who helped us understand that you can find your own stories in literature, in books, in the lives of other people. And so I hope in the books we've read for this year that maybe you find your own family story or part of your life, or you learn about somebody else's life and somebody else's culture. So I think that really honors TOMAS RIVERA so much and helps all of us to come together in understanding each other. Nancy, who spoke just before me, did a great job in thanking everyone who put today together. But Nancy's our leader. She leads the team that gets it all done, and that's the only person we haven't thanked yet. So can we give a big round of thanks to Nancy? And thank you. Welcome to Texas State.
Thank you, Dr. O'Malley. So will you please join me in welcoming the 4th grade dual language students from Ms. Landa Verde's class from Perez Elementary in Austin, Texas. They're going to be introducing Pedro Martin.
Good morning. My name is Ike.
Good morning. My name is Luca. We attend Perez Elementary in Austin, Texas.
Today, we welcome Pedro Martin.
He is the winner of the 2024 TOMAS RIVERA Children's Book Award. Mr. Martin is both an author and illustrator. His book, Mexican, is a graphic memoir that is based off his online comic series of the same name. He is a former Hallmark artist and the creator of the Asteroid Andy cartoon shorts. Pedro
Martin
Martin
published Mexican in 2023.
His
His
book
book was awarded
the
the 2024 Pura Pre Award and a 2024 Newbery Honor. Today we honor his literary work by awarding him the 2024 Tomas Rivera Children's Book Award. Please give a warm welcome to Pedro Martin.
Let's give a round of applause to the students from Perez.
Thank you so much.
And now, thank you students, you did a great job. Take a bow and we'll...
Oh, there's more.
Ay, perdón. Equivoqué.
Okay. There's more.
Ese fue mi culpa. I'm so sorry.
Hola, buenas tardes. Me llamo Aaron.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Josué. Asistimos a la Escuela Pérez en Austin, Texas. Es un placer introducir a Pedro Martín, un autor e ilustrador. Ilustré su libro Mexican. Es un memorio gráfico que se basaba en su serie de caricaturas en línea con el mismo nombre. Antes trabajaba como artista para Hallmark y es creador de las caricaturas Asteroid Andy. Su libro Mexican, publicado en 2023, ganó el premio Pura Delpe y un Newbery Honor. Ahora celebramos el honor literario que se le brinda a Pedro Martín por medio del premio 2024 de Tomás Rivera de Libros Infantiles Mexicoamericanos 2024. Vamos a darle la bienvenida a Pedro Martín.
Otro aplauso fuerte para los alumnos de Pérez. Thank you guys. Hey, take a bow. Take a bow.
Yay, okay, thank you guys so much.
All right, so we are going to welcome Pedro Martin. Can we give a round of applause for Pedro?
That's right. Wow, thank you guys so much. That was amazing. Would you go ahead and start? Sure. Okay, I'll go ahead and start. Thank you so much for the honor to talk to you today, and again, thank you to the Tomas Rivera Committee for inviting me and for this honor. It's amazing. This is all new to me. I used to work in a dark basement for years and years and years, and this is the first time I've gotten a lot of light. So I'm just kind of talking to people, and little people and big people is really, really amazing. So I'll just get started. So this is me back when, before all my hair problems started. This is little Pedro. As if you read the book, you know I had a lot of hair problems in the book, but then also the hair problems kind of followed me for the rest of my life, as you can see right there. So Mexikid, the graphic memoir is my very, very first book. I worked for years and years at a greeting card company. I don't know if anybody knows even what that is. But I used to work doing artwork for 27 years, and when I retired, I started to do this, which was totally, totally new, nothing I'd ever done before. But it was a very true story about my family and this trip that we took to Mexico. And the story is 100% true, 90% of the time. And this is based on, of course, this is my family. This is the Martins. There are 9 kids, and then my mom and dad. And I like to show this picture because I like to point out my dad up in that top of that picture. You see how tired he looks? because he has 9 kids. But the best part is if you look over at my mom, you see how mad she looks? It's because she has 9 kids. But we were a very happy family nonetheless. This was the breakup of the family. This is how we broke up into groups. My mom and dad were both born in Mexico, so they were very, very Mexican. And then my older brothers and sisters were all born in Mexico and then came here as kids. And then we were all born, the youngest 4 of us were all born in the United States. The reason is, I talk about this picture is because there was like a big divide in my family about those who were Mexican and those who were not Mexican. And it didn't really bother me so much that part of it, but until later on when I started to kind of interact and started to tell my stories and try to figure out who I was and what I was talking about. But my older brothers and sisters, because they came from Mexico to the United States, they had a struggle that they had to overcome. They had to learn English. The younger of us were all born here, and so we were kind of born bilingual, if you can believe it. And they never let us forget it, that we had it easy, and they used to make fun of us because we had it so easy. We even got to be born in hospitals. Hospital babies, they kept calling us hospital babies. And we're like, whatever, barn babies, because we knew they were born in barns in Mexico. But we grew up very, very poor. We grew up in California, near Monterey, and we were sharecroppers, so we picked strawberries for a living. That was every summer after school and on the weekends, we'd be out in the fields with my papa picking strawberries, and it didn't make us a lot of money. But my dad liked to, joke that he's like, oh, I have all you kids are my workforce, so I don't have to pay you very much, so we're making money somehow. Anyway, we were very poor, but we were happy again. So we just got by on the basics, and we lived in a tiny little house. The house was only built for 5 people, but there was 11 of us in the house. And we got used to just everything being we were kind of poor. Until one day my pa comes home with this thing. This is the 1972 Winnebago Chieftain motorhome. Like, this is a magic, we couldn't believe when this thing rolled in. Like, we were poor, how could we afford this thing? This thing's 28 and a half feet long, 10 and a half feet tall, weighs 10,000 pounds. It's got places to sleep. It's like a little house that travels down the road really fast with lots of sharp edges and no seatbelts, but still super cool. We're like, Papa, how can we afford such a wonderful, wonderful machine? And he's just like, oh, Mijo, we were very lucky that somebody died in it. So, also it's haunted. So we were very, very lucky. So yay. So we got this super, super awesome machine for super, super cheap. And we could tell when the ghost was there because at night you could smell cigarette smoke rising from the shag carpet. And you're like, whoa, that's the ghost, that's the ghost. But having this machine was amazing because we get to take trips. It was a really wonderful, fancy way to go about getting things done. Let's see. So one year, if you've read the story, you know that my parents had announced that we were going to go to Mexico to get my abuelito and bring him back to live with us in the United States. And everybody was all kind of excited about this idea, except for me, because as if you remember, my Spanish was mixed up with my English, so I was like, I'm not going to have a lot to talk about with my abuelito. We already live in a house built for 11. This is going to be a disaster. So I was not on board with this trip at all. I was kind of mad about this trip. But as you can see from the picture, they're like super, super happy for this trip to get started. And you can tell that it's early in the trip because they're smiling. They don't know what's happening very much next. So this was the trip we took. This was the whole long trip from my hometown of Watsonville, California, all the way down to Pegueros, Jalisco. It's like 2,000 miles all the way down. And I used to think of this motorhome as our Millennium Falcon because the Star Wars movie had just come out and I was like super excited. And so my dad's nickname was Chato. So anytime we got into the machine and we started to take off, we'd say, punch it, Chato. We would go on an adventure. So this is my abuelito Alejandro. He was born in 1892. That's 3 years before radio was invented. That's not even a joke, that's like a real thing. 1 year before the Ferris wheel was invented. This is the youngest picture that I could find of him. This is when he was probably in his 20s, and he looks old. And I asked my apa when I was drawing this picture, I said, hey, what color hair did Abuelito have when he was young? And my dad's like, no, he's always had gray hair. He was always old. I'm like, oh, that's amazing. So this is a picture of him during the time of this story. This is when we went down to get him in Mexico. This is what he looked like. And you can see, like, he did not age between these two pictures. This is probably 50 years difference here. And that's Abuelito when we got him back to the United States, when he started settling in. He's got his little tejana and everything, very, very cool. And then, of course, this is my abuelita Faustina, who passed away years and years before I was born, but she was kind of like the catalyst of everything in our family. It's kind of like the Big Bang, you know, like once something happens so dramatic, everything kind of flies away. And so when my abuelita died, my abuelito's family all flew away because there was nobody to take care of them anymore. So they had to go out and find people to help them and take care of them because they were so poor. And so her death was very, very important to the family and kind of got the whole immigration story started. When this trip started and I was really angry and upset about the trip because I didn't want this old man living with us and I wouldn't have anything to talk about, and even if I could talk about anything. My brothers and sisters started telling me stories about my abuelito that were kind of like very interesting. So they started telling me, you know, don't be afraid of your abuelito. You know, he was around during the Mexican Revolution. And I'm like, oh, really now? The Mexican Revolution, that's really cool. And because I was like a big Star Wars head and I love comic books, when I heard Mexican Revolution, I felt like it was really heroic. And so I'm like, my abuelito must have been the hero of the Mexican Revolution. So this is kind of how I thought of him. It's like this hero of the Mexican Revolution. And when we got to Mexico, I started hearing stories about my abuelito, and he was around during the Cristeros War, and during that war, he was mistaken for a government soldier, and the Cristeros captured him, and they were going to hang him. But just before they hung him, he was able to find this immense power within him, and he threw the Cristeros all to the sides of the road, and he fought them off like rag dolls. And I'm like, wow, like that's like the Hulk. My abuelito is somehow the Hulk as well. That's really, really cool. So I'm like, I'm getting on board with this guy. This guy seems pretty cool. And then they told me another story. Like, he was out in the wilderness, and he was being attacked by some bandits, and he was able to fight them off with his wits and a caña all by himself. I'm like, that's like a Jedi. That's like Jedi stuff. Like, that's crazy. So my grandfather is a Mexican Jedi, Catholic Hulk, Revolutionary War hero. Bring him on, yeah! And you know, selfishly, it wasn't just about that, but it was also about like, I was his grandson, therefore I must inherit all his powers, therefore I'm Mexican Jedi too, right? Is that right? I'll tell you later if I am or not, So when we got down to Mexico to get my abuelito and bring him back to the United States, not only was he not exactly what I thought he was going to be, he was also not ready to come live with us in the United States. He had things he wanted to still do in life, and he had missions that he had to accomplish. And unfortunately, I was going to be one of the people that helped him finish his last mission in Mexico. Graphic memoir. So graphic memoir is like an interesting storytelling tool that I kind of just stumbled across. I didn't know anything about it. All I knew from storytelling was what my parents told me and what I knew from my brothers and sisters was just, this is how you tell stories. Because we were, like you guys, all your families would get together around the holidays, around Christmas, and you tell the story, the family story, and how you got here. And it was always fun and exciting. So that's kind of how I learned story, was from listening to other people tell story. So when I was working at that greeting card company years and years ago, and I had nothing to do and I was getting super, super bored because I was kind of a fast artist, I would start writing these stories down from when I was a kid, when I was your age. on these little 3x5 cards. It looks something like this. So these are these little 3x5 cards. They're just little note cards, and I decided every little card was going to be a panel of a story. And once I finished the story, I would tie a rubber band around it, and I would throw it into this lunchbox that I had, this old Batman lunchbox. And I did that for years. I just wrote a story, and I'm like, ha ha ha, funny story, drop it in the box. And you can see right there, some of the stories are not stories, they're just things I remember. So there's me sitting on the toilet reading a comic book. Because, why not? You're there, you might as well do something. Then there was like breakdowns of the different kinds of action figures I like to collect, because I like to collect action figures, and so I just told stories about the action figures and stuff like that. But when I retired from that job, and I left and I moved into the basement where I set up my studio, I found this lunchbox. And I got super excited because I was like, I forgot all about these stories. These are great stories. And I started opening them up and I started reading them to myself. And I'm like, these are kind of funny. I'm like, maybe I can share them with the world because I got nothing going on. I'm retired. I might as well. So I challenged myself to do a new story every week. A new story on the internet. They were 20 panels long, and they would be stories about my life when I was a kid, about my family. And the reason why I did it every week was because I was like so used to doing a job, a work job, like I didn't know how to have fun. So I just made all my fun have rules, like you have to wake up at 5 in the morning, you have to do this. So this is a story about my mom's arroz. Now, don't make too much sound, but if you think your mom makes the best rice in the world, raise your hand. Okay, you can put them down now. Put them down, because you're wrong. You're totally wrong. My mom makes the best rice in the world. Got it. No, not true. Not true. No. I will fight you outside on this point. Okay, so now you understand the importance of fighting for your mom's rice, right? So that's what I used to do when I was a kid. I used to get mad at other people I used to get in fights with other people because I said my mom's rice is the best rice in the world. So in this story, I'll just tell you a little bit about the story. A little thing about the story. So my papa, when he wasn't working in the fields, when he had time off, he was an inventor, and he was always inventing things. And so he would just kind of show up just in the middle of the day. He's like, look what I invented, this new thing. And it was like, wow, that's amazing, new thing. So in this story, I'm asking my mom to teach me how to make her rice so that I can make it just as good as she can. And this happened every time that she tried to teach me how to make the rice. She would be right in the middle of making the rice, and she'd be telling me here's how much rice to how much liquid that you have to put together. And just as she's about to tell me her secret, my papa would walk in the room and he'd be like, hey, look what I made. And I'm like, and he says, I call it chicken ladder. I was like, wow, that's really cool. What's it for? And he says, well, if you need to move your chickens from one place to another, you can train them to sit on the ladder and then walk them over to the new place all at once. Easy. And then my mom would say, and that's how you make the rice. I'm like, oh, I missed it again. No. But this happened all the time. And just to prove that my stories are 100% true 90% of the time, there's chicken ladder. That's my abba with chicken ladder. I know. It's copywritten, patent pending, you can't do it at home. A lot of you guys, I like to do a quick tour of my studio so you guys know where I work. So I live now in Kansas City, Missouri, and my house has a big basement, and that's where I set up my studio when I retired. So I'm underground and I'm working, and this is where the book was created. So this is my little office space in the corner of the basement. So we're underground, and you can see like some of my action figures up at the top there. And then there's a drop ceiling right there, which is very special. And then my note cards. This is how I write. When I write stuff down, this is how I write. I write on little notes and stick them on the wall to make my stories, to kind of figure them out. The other thing every studio has to have, every artist studio has to have, is a set of mythical weapons. See, did I tell you about the Mexican Jedi stuff? Right? Very, very close. Very close. The other thing every art studio has to have is a workspace. So this is my studio workspace. This is where I put my papers down and stuff when I'm working. But the most important thing every studio has to have is a studio cat. So this is my studio cat. So this is so this is my cat. This is Pepe. He lives in the drop ceiling above my studio, right where I work. He's super, super cute. He's very shy. He usually just stays up there for the most of the day, and sometimes he wants to go out for a walk, so I'll have to take him out for a walk. And so I have to have a special tool to get him to come out. He's very, very sweet. And when we take him out, we have this special little walking cage that we put him in so that dogs won't attack him. Thank you. Oh, Pepe. Everybody loves Pepe. Thank you. I know you guys like cats, and my whole family, big fans of cats as well. So my dad also had cats. So this is my dad's cat right there. So that's Sergio the cat. It's adorable. You're right. One of the fun things about writing this book was when I started writing this story. I started writing this story about this crazy road trip that we took. It was about like all the crazy stuff that happened on the road trip. But as you kind of start writing a book and start writing a story, you kind of notice that the story starts taking over for itself, and it starts writing for you. It starts discovering things that you didn't know that you wanted to tell. One of the first things that my editor asked me when I was first starting to write the book, she says, "Oh, do you go by Peter or Pedro?" Which was interesting because my email says Peter, and at my old job I went by Peter, but my name is Pedro. And I said whatever everybody else says. I said, "Oh, either or, you can call me Peter or Pedro." And she's like, no, which one is it? Is it Peter or Pedro? It's like, oh, that's a really good question. I didn't really think about it. And she's like, well, if you're going to tell a story about yourself, then you need to know who you are, right? And I said, that's a really good question. And so when I started writing the story again, the story changed to be not about just this trip to get my grandfather and bring him to the United States. This was a story about trying to understand who I was and who my family was and where they came from and what that meant to me. Because like I said in the earlier slides, our family was kind of separated in the middle by people who were born in Mexico and people who were born in the United States. And we were all the time fighting about who was better, who was best. And it was really, really interesting to sit down and try to figure out who I was in this whole thing. And this story, believe it or not, writing the story helped me discover that for myself. And I became a little bit more aware of my family, of where my people came from, and also where I was going. That was a big thing about where do I go next? How do I tell my stories? And how do I get kids who are also like me when I was a kid, who have lots of stories and hear lots of stories, how do I get them motivated to tell their stories? So this kind of was like the big push of the book, was just kind of discover these new things. My first memories of Mexico were going to the mercado and discovering all the beautiful colors and all the wonderful smells, the smells of the toys, because the toys were always made by disreputable toy makers, and so they always smelled like gasoline, and they were dangerous, and you could cut yourself on every edge, and I loved it. I was like, yes, this is Mexico, this is what I love. The other thing I learned while doing this book is about my relationship with my abuelito and my relationship with storytelling, because those stories about my abuelito being a hero even though they were, really fun to tell and retell, until you met the guy, you didn't realize that, oh, he went through a lot of hardship to be those heroes to me. He had a lot of death in his family. He had a lot of struggles because he was super poor. So all that stuff kind of came out, and that story about him being heroic became even more important because of all he went through. But then I also remember the quiet moments with him about learning that he was a normal person who liked to draw pictures too, like I did. And so that we could share that, even though we didn't have the language to talk about the important things to me, like, is Chewbacca a Bigfoot? Like, we couldn't have that conversation because he didn't understand Chewbacca. He thought I was talking about a cow. He's like, Chewie the cow, Chewie the baka? I'm like, no, Chewbacca. Anyway, let's draw pictures. So we just drew pictures. And so we got to know each other through that artwork. The other thing I learned was kind of some science stuff. I learned about, these adventures that I was having with my family, and I didn't even realize that I was having an adventure because I was so caught up in my own head that I didn't realize that, like, oh, we're traveling through this country that I don't know in this machine that's made out of sharp edges, and we're picking up dead animals, and it's amazing. And at the time, I was just mad about the whole thing. But now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, no, I was on an adventure. That was amazing. That was amazing. I also learned that that trick that my father taught us about wherever you go, just imagine that anybody you meet is going to be your cousin, because they could be your cousin. You don't know. And you might as well be nice to your cousin, right? So anytime somebody approaches you, just pretend they're your cousin, and then you feel like you can talk to them, and you can help them, and they can help you. So in the case of the book, my father said, watch out for your cousins. They are all over the place. And so, of course, we met one of our cousins out in the wild. I know, but he's our cousin, so we gotta be nice to our cousin, right? So when our cousin comes and our cousin asks for something like Pop Rocks, you say, yes, cousin, please enjoy the Pop Rocks. And so we gave him some Pop Rocks. And then we also learned the basics of chemistry, that Pop Rocks react to liquid, and boogers are liquid, and you get magical bubbles. So, isn't that cool? So lastly, I want to talk about the other thing I learned about when writing the story was about this relationship I had with my brothers and sisters that I didn't know that I had until we were kind of in this adventure that we were closer than we were apart. That separation between us being mostly Mexican and somewhat American really didn't matter. Like, we were a family, and we were taking care of each other. We were learning about what it was to rely on each other. And so a lot of stuff kind of happened in a very, very short time, and it was very, very magical. And I look back at it all the time, and I think about, like, oh, I wish I could go back to that time, and I could say more things and do more things. And then I suddenly realized I could do that now. I could say more things and do more things now. So as a parting, to you guys, and to finish out, I just want to remind you guys that you guys are the guys who are going to get to tell the stories of where you come from and where your family comes from. And that's really, really cool. Like, now you have this opportunity to take these stories that probably wouldn't have been told in books or in songs or anything, and you get to bring them forward to here, to the United States, to share with other people, and then all over the world. So I hope you guys take advantage of the opportunity. I hope you guys take little note cards and write on them if you can. Take little recordings of your parents as they're talking, telling stories, because they'll tell stories if you ask questions. And I'll just really quickly, I'll tell you one real quick. My mom was cooking one day, and I asked her, just because I didn't have anything to do. I said, hey, Ma, did you have a boyfriend before my dad? And she goes, oh, yeah, of course. And I said, oh, but when you met my dad, who was very, very handsome, you left this boyfriend to date my dad and marry my dad. And she's like, oh, no, my boyfriend was way handsomer than your dad. I said, what? No. And she's like, oh, yeah, you should have seen this guy. He was very handsome.
And my dad is arguably handsome. He's a good-looking guy. And my mom's like, not so much. This other guy, much better. And then I started to get offended because I kind of look like my dad. So I'm like, oh, so she's saying I don't look good. Oh, anyway. But anyway, once that gate broke open, then all the chisme, everything started coming out, all these beautiful stories, and I was writing everything down that she said, and she regrets every second of it to this day. So anyway, please be storytellers, be story capturers, and make sure that when you see somebody out in the world and you want to be nice, consider them a cousin, like I consider you my cousin. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Gracias.
Let's give another round of applause to Pedro Martin. And I'd like to ask you to join me in welcoming. First of all, I want to say something real quick to Perez students. We had technical problems. The students were actually going to present for something that they've created, and they're going to come on after Carmen Tafoya. So we're going to welcome Perez students back up. We oftentimes have technical problems, and so I want to apologize to Perez students, but we'll have you come back up. Right now, I want to welcome the 4th grade dual language students from Mrs. Lopez and Miss Wakefield's class from Bowie Elementary right here in San Marcos. They are going to present something that they've worked on really hard, and they're also going to present Carmen Tafoya.
Good morning, I am Brielle Salinas.
And I'm Isabela Pastores.
Buenos días, me llamo María García. Y yo soy Angélica Hernández.
And we are 4th graders at Bowie Elementary in San Marcos, Texas. Today we welcome Dr. Carmen Tafoya. She is the winner of the 2024 TOMAS RIVERA Children's Book Award.
Dr. Tafoya is a creator, writer, poet, performer, artist, and culture activist.
Hoy damos la bienvenida a la doctora Carmen Tafoya. Es la ganadora del Premio Libro Infantil Tomás Rivera 2024. La doctora Tafoya es una autora ilustre, escritora, poeta, artista de educación y activista cultural. O sea, una activista.
She's a professor emeritus of UT San Antonio and a native of San Antonio's West Side barrio. Es profesora emerita de la UT San Antonio y una nativa del barrio West Side de San Antonio.
She is the author of over 40 books, including What Can You Do with a Paleta and What Can You Do with a Rebozo, 2 of my favorite picture books. Dr. Tafoya has won too many awards named at this time.
Es la autora de más de 40 libros, incluyendo ¿Qué puedes hacer con una paleta? Y ¿Qué puedes hacer con un rebozo? 2 de mis libros ilustrados favoritos. La doctora Tafoya se ha ganado muchos premios, demasiados para nombrar en este momento.
Carmen Tafoya
published for a girl in 2023. Today we honor her literary work by awarding her 2024 Tomas Rivera Children's Book Award. It is the third time Dr. Tafoya has won the Tomas Rivera Award.
Su libro Guerrera fue publicado en 2023. Hoy honramos su obra literaria otorgándole el premio El Libro Infantil Tomás Rivera 2024. Es la tercera vez que la doctora Tafoya gana el premio Tomás Rivera.
Her book of poems, Warrior Girl, has inspired Mrs. Lopez's students to write the following.
Su libro de poemas Guerrera ha inspirado a la clase de la maestra López a escribir lo siguiente.
Soy fuerte como un guerrero. I'm strong and a warrior. I am a warrior, yo soy fuerte. En mi corazón soy fuerte como un guerrero. Puedo hacerlo con la ayuda de mi familia, con mi abuelo y con mi abuela.
Yo soy guerrera porque soy amable, I am kind. Tengo corazón grande, I have a big heart. Yo soy guerrera.
I'm strong and confident, I fight for what is right.
No me rindo, puedo hacerlo, soy una guerrera. Soy fuerte, creo en mí, tengo esperanza, amo mi cultura, lo puedo lograr. Soy una guerrera.
I am confident like a warrior girl.
I am poderosa. I can do it because I'm strong and proud of myself. I am a friend.
Soy fuerte, nunca me rindo, puedo lograrlo. I fight for what's right and for my family.
I am confident, proud of myself, and I keep on going.
Yo soy fuerte y creo en mí.
Soy valiente y fuerte porque con mi familia puedo lograrlo. Soy fuerte y orgullosa, no me rindo nunca. También soy inteligente y valiente, soy un guerrero poderoso. Yo no me rindo, soy fuerte, una guerrera. Con mi mamá soy más fuerte. Creo en mí y soy poderosa. Yo soy valiente para lograr lo que quiero con la ayuda de mi mamá, mi papá y mis abuelitos. Somos guerreros.
Thank you, Dr. Carmen Tafoya. Your book has inspired us to find our voices and be able to express our thoughts.
Gracias, doctora Carmen Tafoya, por inspirarnos a encontrar nuestras voces y poder expresar nuestros pensamientos.
Give a warm welcome. Vamos a brindar una cálida bienvenida a la doctora Carmen Tafoya.
Let's give a round of applause to the students at Bowie. Take a bow, take a bow. Wonderful, beautiful job. And now, can we give a warm welcome to Dr. Carmen Tafoya?
To me. To be asked to come here as a writer who receives the Tomas Rivera Book Award is very, very special. I knew Tomas. He was very kind. He was very smart. But when he talked to people, he made them feel smart. He made them feel important. He made everyone feel like they had a right to speak out. And he too would speak out for what was right. Us writers, we like to speak out. We like to talk about what's good, what's sad, what's happy, what's a giant adventure. We like to talk, see things that are going on and talk about it. Give people a sense that that one's not working, okay. Hold on for mic switch. Okay, that's okay. This happens. If we can, well, there went the PowerPoint. Okay, we're gonna do this. Okay.
Take a second. So what I want you to do is use your best whisper voice. And this side of the room is going to say clear. This side of the room is going to say girl. Ready?
That's pretty cool. Okay. Got it. Okay. One of the things that we like to do is notice things, and we speak out. Some of us speak out in public, some of us speak out just by writing. Some of us write up the margins, send little notes to our friends, or little emails or texts. But we notice everything that's going out there. I'm here today because of this book, Warrior Girl, which I'm proud to say came out in English as Warrior Girl, and in Spanish as Guerrera. And the story in Guerrera is about somebody who was silenced. She felt like life had slapped us hard. Have you ever been silenced? I'm going to ask you to try something, okay? Y'all are mature. We're not dealing with the second graders here. We're dealing with big kids, okay? So, since you're mature, you can take complicated instructions, multi-step instructions. ¿Listos? Okay. Aquí vamos. First of all, I want you to get ready. Don't do it yet, but get ready to scream. No. Don't do it yet. Got the scream ready? You have it ready? Okay. There's a little volume control on your neck right here. I want you to play with it a little bit. See if you imagine your volume control. Imagine it all the way at the top as loud as it can go. You got it? Don't do it. Hold it. Okay, I want you to turn it down a little bit. Then I want you to turn it down to about halfway. Okay, you ready? You ready? No, let's turn it down to 1/4. Okay, down to 1/4. Are you ready? You got the screen there? Something has happened, and you just can't hold it in, and you want to let it out. And then I want you to turn the volume all the way to nothing. Nothing. Let's see how many of you can really do this. You're going to let out that scream, but it's going to sound like this. Can you do that for me? Okay, let's do it. Ready? All the way down to nothing. We better not have anybody que no entendió. Hay que entender que el volumen está en nada. El grito está allí, pero el volumen no te va a permitir hacer más que... ¿Ok? Va a ser 1, 2, 3. 1, 2... You gotta try it at least once in your life, okay? This time you're gonna get it right. How many of you can get it right? Raise your hands. That's pretty good. Now let's see you do it. All the way to 0. I won't hear it with my ears. I will hear it with my heart and with my eyes. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Let's try it a different way. Remember when the character in this book feels like life has put its hard hand over her boat? I want you to put your hard hand over your mouth and just sit with it for a moment. Does it feel good? It does not feel good to be silenced. It does not feel good to not be able to speak up and say what you want to say. So I'm going to give you an easier assignment to make up for asking you to be silenced. I want you to think of your name. I want you to think of your name the way you like it said. Okay? The way you like it said. If your name is Rafael at home and you like Rafael and you come to school and they call you Ralph, don't think of Ralph, think of Rafael. If your mama only calls you Cynthia Ann when she's mad at you, but when she's really happy with you, she calls you Cindy Chula, think of Cindy Chula, okay? If your name is Guadalupe, and there's just one kid at school that keeps calling you Guadalupe, don't think of Guadalupe. Think of your name the way you like to hear it said. And I want you to say your name, not screaming, but beautifully, with lots of love, with lots of confidence. Ready? You got your name in here? Not your neighbor's name, your name. Ready, set. That feels good. That feels good. But the girl in this book, she is so excited. She's ready to go to school. She's ready to learn everything. She is so happy. And she knows what her name is. She knows exactly what her name is. And I'll read you that point in just a little while. But her name is Selena Teresa Guerrero Amaya. Except that at the hospital, the nurse made a mistake because she saw all those names. I don't think 4 names is too many, but the nurse did. And she got confused, and she forgot the Amaya completely. And the Guerrero she wrote down with an A instead of an O, and it's Guerrera, which is the word for a female warrior. So her family was too busy oohing and eyeing over her when she was a baby. So they didn't even notice until the birth certificate came in the mail to their little small town. And they opened it up, and it said, Selena Teresa Guerrera. And her dad said, it means a woman warrior. She'll be brave and strong. We can get it changed later. Maybe. And Mama says, maybe. And they don't get it changed. So she grows up, Selena Teresa Guerrera. And she begins to think of herself as a guerrera. And she thinks of herself as smart. And she thinks of herself as loving. She thinks of herself as also wonderful because Grandma comes to visit, and Grandma's name is Tere. And Teresa was named after Grandma Tere. And so everybody calls her Tere for short. So she thinks that's the most wonderful, beautiful name in the world until she goes to her first day of school. And the teacher says, hi, my name is Miss Jones. And Tere says, hi, my name is Tere. And Miss Jones says, Terry. It's pronounced Terry. And Tere says, no, it's pronounced Tere. Terry. Tere. Terry. Tere. Watch me now. Terry. See? See? No, it's Tere. You will learn how to say this correctly. Terry. Terry. Just watch my mouth. Terry. Tere. Terry. Okay, it's Terry. So she loses her name. And then she finds that they don't like the language she speaks. And they stop her every time, and they say, this is the U.S., speak English. So they don't like her name, and they don't like her language, and they don't like her culture. And things get kind of tough at school. Then she looks in the history books, and she doesn't find anything at all about her or her history or her family's history. So she begins to think that maybe school is kind of tough. Until the moment when they decide they're going to move to this wonderful big city with these wonderful schools, and they're going to live with grandma, her wonderful grandma, that life is going to be so wonderful. She's going to have these great teachers, and they're going to study all kinds of wonderful things, and she's going to go into 7th grade. And the night before 7th grade, her father gets deported back to Mexico. That's not the worst thing that happens that year, but it's pretty far up there for her. And the book is about the adventures that she has in that year and how she learns that she's got a special power inside herself. She's got a very strong power to be strong no matter how tough things are outside. She's got the power to build a shield, like the little shields you saw up here, that the beautiful students put together with their words attached to it and their courage and their confidence. She can build a shield, and Grandma teaches her how. A beautiful, invisible shield that when bad things hit it, bounces right off. She doesn't let it get to her. When they call her dirty names or give her dirty looks, she just imagines that shield there, and the ugly names and the dirty looks bounce off. But when good things come at her, friendship, smiles, love, appreciation, a chance to learn new things, she lets them in. They come through the shield because it's a semi-permeable membrane for you guys who like science. It lets certain things in and other things not. She learns that she can be strong. Grandma teaches her a lot of things. Well, I have to tell you that the book is based on real people. Real people in this part of the world, including me. And you may think I'm an award-winning author, and I kind of am, but I'm also an outlaw. And I have been, I was an outlaw for 12 years of my life. I'm not too dangerous right now, but I was an outlaw. And when you think of an outlaw, you might think of somebody that looks kind of like this. Andres, can we have that? Right? With banderillas and bullets and a revolutionary, okay? But I didn't look like that when I became an outlaw, because when I became an outlaw, I looked like that. I was 6 years old, and I was starting school, and I didn't want to be an outlaw. I just became an outlaw when I opened my mouth. Because, you know what my mouth said? You know what my mouth did that turned it into an outlaw? Any guesses? Wasn't a dirty word, no. I spoke Spanish. You are right. I spoke Spanish. I said, yo quiero mi mamá. I said, tengo hambre. Quiero ir a la casa. Ya me cansé. And things were chaotic because most of the kids in the classroom didn't speak English. We all spoke Spanish. We understood each other. But the teacher didn't understand Spanish. She only spoke English. And it was kind of crazy in the classroom. So I watched the craziness for about 10 minutes. Believe it or not, I then stood up and started to walk out of the classroom. I was doing a little walkout without knowing it. It was like, hi, y'all. And the teacher said, wait, where are you going? I said, I'm going home. I'm going to go. Thank you for school. Thank you very much. I had a good time. Bye. And I started to leave. They stopped me. But anyway, that was my first day of school. That was my first experience with going to school.
because it didn't make sense to me that we couldn't speak in one of the two languages that we own. We spoke them together. We mixed them together. Mamá, me caí de la bike y I hurt mi knee. Salió mucho blood. And we would talk like that. We would mix the languages together because everybody I knew in my little neighborhood spoke some English, some Spanish, some spoke more English than Spanish, some spoke more Spanish than English, but we mixed it all together. It was one big happy language, super language. Well, that shield that I was telling you about, and that superpower that little Selena Teresa Guerrera Amaya managed to discover in herself, you have that power too. You have the power to say, I don't have to listen to what everybody else says. If they say ugly things about me, what they think doesn't matter as much as what I know. I know I'm not an ugly person. And so that is one of the things that can help us. At the time I went to school, it was against state law and school law to speak Spanish on school grounds or in the playground. So we got into lots of trouble. And I wasn't a troublemaking kid most of the time. Here you see me with my aunts. We were pretty happy in the barrio. You see down there back at my grandparents' home. I loved the weeds. I used to sit in the middle of the weeds and pull them up and find out what the roots look like. And sometimes we'd go on vacation. We'd go to Mexico to visit more cousins in Mexico. So it was pretty good. And I had cousins. And when the cousins would come to visit, we had a lot of fun in the backyard. We didn't think we were a bad situation or bad people. We thought we had just a great time. So here I am on the right there holding Howdy Doody, my Howdy Doody puppet, and he was the cartoon character of the time, and my three little cousins. And if somebody went hunting and got a deer, the whole neighborhood got venison tamales that week. So I went over and took a picture with the deer. And yeah, there was a lot of poverty, but we didn't mind it. We just figured we should speak up. So the streets on the north side of town got fixed and were paved and smooth, and the streets on the west side of town looked like this. They had great big holes in it. So a guy from the newspaper came to talk to my next door neighbor, who was my tia, about the holes and the citizens that were complaining about the holes in the street. And she said, oh, pues esos charcos, some of them are so big that they're bigger than my little sobrina. And the newspaper man said, put her in the hole, put her in the charco. And my mother said, wait, let me put on her pretty dress. So if you look really closely, and I didn't know this till about 2 years ago, when they used this on the front of a newspaper in San Antonio, and they thought that there was a smudge on the printing press because my forehead has got dirt on it, and my hands have got dirt on them. It's only the dress that's pretty and clean. And so he took the picture, put it in the newspaper, and that was my first newspaper protest. Because the neighborhood said, how come we pay taxes, but our side of town doesn't get the streets fixed? So there was a lot of prejudice. Prejudice is judging people before you know them. And if you judge them by their color or their race or the amount of money they have or what language they speak, that's prejudice. There's my school, my second grade class in school, and my teacher in the back. This is grainy because it was a copy of a copy of a copy. But the problem when we started school was the fact that we'd get in trouble for speaking Spanish. If you see this picture, I was in 6th grade when I took that picture, so excuse it if it's fuzzy. It was one of those cameras you hold on your tummy that you don't even find anymore, and you have to press down. Miss Moran was smiling, but look behind her at the two little girls against the wall. While the rest of us had recess, the two little girls against the wall had to spend the whole recess standing with their nose against the wall. course, when Miss Moran turned around, they got to turn to and see what was going on. Why do you think they had their nose against the wall? They said something in Spanish, yes. And so that was one of the punishments. Kneeling and asking forgiveness was another punishment. The most common one was the paddle, whack, and we would get hit. It was very embarrassing. If you cried, it was embarrassing. If you didn't cry, it was embarrassing. It didn't matter. It was pretty bad, and it didn't matter if you were in first grade or if you were a senior in high school. You still got hit with the paddle. So, did we learn to speak amazing English because of that rule? No. We learned to be quiet and watch for the teacher. Is she coming? She's coming. Sí, no digas nada más en español, okay? That's what would happen. We weren't very happy by the time we got to high school. Look at the faces. This is what happens when you silence people, when you don't let them speak up. So, as a result, I decided that I was going to let Tere speak up and have her voice. And I'm going to share just a couple of the poems from it's called A Novel in Verse. I don't want to sit on this because I will fast forward everything. This is one of the poems about what the grandma taught Tere. My grandma Tere taught me. One of the things my grandma Tere taught me was how to make a fiesta out of every day. Every day she would whisper, today is a celebration. It's the feast of San Fulano de Tal. And she would tell me the name of the saint for that day, or the celebration for that day, or the reason we should be happy that day. It's el día del mariachi, so we listen to mariachi music. Es el día del chef, so we cook something special and exotic. Es el día de la risa, so we'd spend the day joking and laughing. Now I know why Tere is just as strong a warrior name as Guerrera. Because when you're celebrating, when you find a reason to be happy, a reason to sing or dance or play or paint or laugh or write, they haven't taken everything away from you. So Grandma really provided her a lot of support. And when they came to the school where the teachers were open and the teachers could tell them and ask them what they were thinking and encourage them to be who they wanted to be, she began to speak up. And it started with little things like homework. Dear Mr. Mason, the history homework you assign makes me sad, makes me cry, makes me ready to revolt. First, that history textbook is so big and heavy, I have to squeeze it into my backpack and it almost breaks the zipper. Second, I walk like 13 blocks home carrying it like iron weights and I'm only 12 and not a weightlifter. Third, that chapter on the Industrial Revolution was so long, it took me 3 hours to read, but worst of all, I read what it said. It said, in the Industrial Revolution, kids were forced to work 10 hours a day or more, and that was just plain wrong. Mr. Mason, have you read this chapter? I think you need to reread the line that says, child labor laws later made it illegal to work children more than 9 hours a day. Mr. Mason, I worked hard 7 hours at school today, plus 3 hours of your homework, and now I have to do math homework too, and that's more than 10 hours. And that's against the law. Love your student. P.S. I'm really good at math. Well, she gets into a lot more adventures. She gets into a lot more adventures, and a lot of fun stuff happens before the end. But I want to let you know that when you hold to your dreams, you can do them. You can do what you want to do. You can do what you're dreaming of doing. You don't have to be silenced. Even if someone's holding a hand over inside, your voice will speak up. Inside. And your strength is not always outside you. It's inside. And you have to find it. So I did go on. I wrote a bunch of books. I performed characters. Here I am performing one of the viejitas in my neighborhood. In fact, this was my tia Sofia, who lived next door, but it's me acting her. I act the Pachuquita sometimes because that was also one of the characters that was in my block. I have become a poet laureate. If you don't know what a laureate is, don't worry about it. But it's a cool thing. I've been Queen Huevo of the parade in San Antonio. And I have won the Tomas Rivera Award and took part in a wonderful celebration with other authors here when the Tomas Rivera was 20 years old. Now it's coming up on being 30 years old. And they made a life-size village based on the little book that had won the Tomas Rivera Award, Playing with Paleta. And there we are enjoying fake paletas, enjoying fake paletas, but we had lots of fun anyway. Juji Morales, Magali Morales, Guadalupe Garcia McCall, and me. And I get to go to a lot of events and do a lot of fun stuff. And I speak a lot of places. The Alamo, New Zealand, Paris. This was at an outdoor screen on the south side of San Antonio. I've had books published in Germany and in India and in France. The kids in Africa have been reading my books. They like What Can We Do with a Paleta? And even babies get read my books. That feels good. So my culture has been very important to me. And if you ever think that you can't be what you want to be for whatever reason because someone else says something silly about you, don't listen to them, because if I can go from being an outlaw to a laureate, you can reach your dreams too. And I have some closing words for you. I want you to hear these words carefully. You have a beautiful mind capable of thinking and finding solutions. And your mind isn't exactly like the person next to you. Maybe they're better at math, maybe you're better at social studies, but your mind is unique and it's your own, and it can find solutions that not everybody else can find. You find different solutions. You have a brave heart that can stand up against whatever they throw at you. You have compassion and creativity that can build a better world. And whenever you think they have taken away everything, remember, the power is inside you to learn, to become, and act, and find the things that make you happy and make your life complete. Because whenever you write, or paint, or sing, or laugh, or dance, or play, they haven't taken everything away from you.
Thank you, Carmen Tafoya, for a beautiful performance. So this is going to conclude our event, but I'm going to ask Bettis to wait because we're going to invite some Bettis students up, but at the same time, we need to start dismissing. So I want to thank you all for attending the Tomas Rivera Children's Book Award, and I'd like for Bowie to walk out the front doors if the ushers will help Bowie, and Desabala, you're going to come down the side over here. Okay, let's have our upstairs, and we have Rodriguez go ahead and head